are listening to the Moms in Business podcast, where we get real about all the things on balancing motherhood and still having a thriving business. It is my goal that you hear from real moms, you hear real stories on mindset, time management strategies, and even the moments of crying in the shower, because we have all been there. I'm your host, Misty Shaheen, life and business coach for moms who want the freedom to live life on their own terms without sacrificing their health or family time. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Megan Schmidt of Align Wellness on with us today, and I am so excited to dive into her story and her journey and how she helps people now. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you here. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I am a mom of 3 girls. I am a coach, a yoga instructor. I started off with health coaching and kind of have transitioned myself in the past almost 2 years now to be specific to mindset. So how I like to say it is it's like the mindset behind the health and living your most aligned life. So that's my program, the Align Life program, because I really think that there's so much of the mindset that's what's holding us back to everything, which I'm sure you can kind of relate to all of that. So yes. A little bit of background, how I kind of got into this and where I started. I was a mom of my first 2 daughters. They are 16 months apart. And so I was stay-at-home mom at that point. My husband is a firefighter, works shift work. I was having like a lot of postpartum anxiety, a lot of negative emotion coming up just around all of that. I was like super nervous on night shifts. I was struggling big time. And so I started listening to different coaches and podcasts that really helped me get my mindset in order back then. I have been a yoga instructor for the past 13 years. So I always had that. I was teaching yoga back then too, still. And I had that in the back of my mind. Like I knew some of the things, but I wasn't applying it. You know what I mean? So yes. I had some tools. So anyways, I was vegetarian at that time. I'm sure from most people's standards, I was like pretty healthy, but I was kind of still junk food vegetarian. We were, and so at that point I was like really not doing well, and I knew it, and I knew I didn't want that anymore. And so that's when I started like, okay, I need to get back into my things. I had totally just given everything up to go all in on being the mom and felt like I had to do it and da 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 da.
So common, right?
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's so funny how now it's just like, no, of course you weren't doing well. You had nothing for it. You didn't take care of yourself. But back then it felt like it was like, I have to do this. I felt like I had no choice. So I got back into running. I got back into, like practicing more consistently for my own practice. I was going to the gym again. We really started to dive into more of like a whole food, plant-based diet rather than we were, like I said, still healthy, but we were more junk foody. So we really like kind of cleaned that up. And from there, started feeling better, surprise, surprise, and just everything else kind of started to fall into place. And then we got pregnant with our 3rd daughter. We were living in a really small house at that point, and we were like, hey, we're going to build a new house and move out of our city that we were living in, just like to a smaller town nearby. So we were doing that, I continued to get better, not struggling with the postpartum anxiety after we were making those changes, and I was taking control of my own situation as well. Had our 3rd daughter, and I kept thinking to myself, like I was feeling better, overall, but I still had like that hole of like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do, because my husband, firefighter, loves what he does, super passionate about his job. I wanted that for myself. And I also really believed that it was possible for me too. You know, like when people, I always like joke when kids are growing up and people say, you know, you can do anything you want to do. I always was like, yes, of course. You know, I really believed in that. Yeah. And it wasn't my reality though. So one night, Mila, my youngest, was 4 months old. Actually, she was probably only 3 months old at the time when I actually came across health coaching. Didn't even know hardly anything about it, right? And I was just like, this is exactly what I need to do. It just was an instant click. So I enrolled to become a health coach, did that while I had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a baby.
Wow.
About the whole year. Yeah, but you know what? It was just like a really good reminder that when you're super passionate about something, like you will find a way. At least that was my experience, you know, like I really wanted to make it work. And it was like never a struggle. Like it was never a struggle for me to like sit down and do the work on the computer. And it was such a passion of mine. I loved it. It was like me time, the time that I really was needing back for myself. And so from that experience, you know, I did like a little bit of health coaching, and then I really thought to myself, I'm like, what people like this information, people know kind of the what to do. People know that. Yeah. I would say the information is there, right?
Right.
But why aren't they doing it? And then that's where it really got me into like, the mindset. That's why they're not doing it. They're not thinking the right thoughts to help them take the proper action. They don't have the proper, I call it abundance energy, right? Everybody is, most people are in lack energy. And that's where I kind of saw that missing piece. And so I pivoted, you know, it's probably been, I think, 1.5 years or maybe almost 2 years now. And that's when that switch kind of happened. And yeah, it's like just more and more, of that feeling of like, this is exactly where I need to be, you know?
Yeah. So did you always want to be a yoga teacher?
So I was 15 when I first took my first yoga class. And then when I was 17, that's when I took my yoga teacher training.
Wow.
So it wasn't like up until I was 15, I had never even known about yoga. Mm-hmm. Then I went with my mom and my sister to a class, and then I enjoyed it. And it's funny because so I'm 30 right now, and like looking back to, 13 years ago when I did my teacher training, now I think to myself, like, wow, that was super bold of you to do that when you were that age, but it just seemed so natural.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you were following your intuition before you probably even knew what that was. I know I didn't even know what intuition was until I had my kids,
Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you went through this yoga teacher training at 17, and then you started just working in like a yoga studio?
Yeah. So going back there, I did the yoga teacher training, and right after, so I was turning 18 that year that it finished. And so I started teaching at like community associations, different yoga studios. And then I went to business administration, like in our city that we were in. So I did a diploma program. And I was still teaching maybe 2 or so times a week while I was doing that. And then once I went through this diploma business administration, the yoga instructor that was my first yoga instructor was looking for, I was like 2 months, I think, from graduating. And he ran into my mom, and he was looking for a studio manager. And he's like, what's Megan up to? And then she was like, oh, she's just doing this program. And he's like, I need a studio manager. And so he's like, tell her to call me. And so then I started working for him for a little bit. And yeah, at that point, I probably thought to myself that I wanted to have a yoga studio, but I never did have a physical yoga studio.
Yeah. Wow. And so then once you had children, how did that change your routines, your mindset around your health?
Oh gosh, everything, right? Like just the moment you become a mom, it's just like, everything just changes. So right before I had my first daughter, Lennon, I was working for like the city. I was doing I don't even know, working at a rec center, basically balancing things, balance. It was a job that everybody would have thought to themselves like, oh, you work for the city. Good for you. But in my heart, I was like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
I'm so unfulfilled. And it's like very important for me to be fulfilled. Like So because my two daughters were like so close together, I just felt like I couldn't put my one daughter in daycare I would have had to put her in early so that I could get the mat leave to go on again with my second daughter. And I was just like, no, I just can't do that for this job that I didn't fully feel lit up about. So anyways, yeah, like going back to your question, having kids really taught me like, oh, the food that we eat creates these little babies and brings them, to their, like they grow, they use this food to create their body. And it was just like so obvious to me. So from that moment, and I mean, I'm sure probably people like stereotypical would have like, I'm a yoga instructor and a vegetarian and like I'm sure I'm the crunchy mom that people would stereotype me as, right? But like, I made their baby food and things like that because it just really made sense to me. Like food, I really have loved nutrition and the healthy lifestyle since becoming a yoga instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I went vegetarian.
Funny you say that. Whenever I was pregnant with my son, although I wasn't super health conscious before I got pregnant, I would always been interested in health. Like I subscribed to all the magazines, but I didn't necessarily have the habits and rituals down myself.
Yeah.
But once I got pregnant and I just started to be super conscious about what goes into our food. And, I went back to, I had this motto of going back to basics. And I was like, the way we raise our children is so different from like what our grandparents did and what our great grandparents did. The food was just so different. Their lifestyle was so different. They didn't buy food out of a jar. They didn't do these things, out of convenience. And so I started making my own baby food and I used cloth diapers. And I just went all the way back because I was like, even like illnesses and the diseases, like they didn't have things like cancer back then. And, we have so much going on right now. And so I, really streamlined, what the things that we had in our houses and things that we were feeding ourselves. And so that's really was my entry into health and wellness was really once I had children, I just became super aware of the things in our environment and the things we were putting into our bodies.
Isn't it so funny how like we treat our body a certain way and then we have a baby and we're like, oh my gosh, this precious little baby, I can't let anything, you need to have, everything just like really wholesome. And yeah, it's so funny that it's like, why don't we treat ourselves like that too? But I think, we do eventually, I'm sure, but like, it's a good reminder. Very much so.
Yeah. And I think to touch on a little bit of what you talked about, when we become mothers, all of a sudden, like our whole life goes out the door and the only thing that matters is that child. And I know the mothers that I work with, typically they don't even know what their hobbies are anymore because they have been moms for so long. They're like, well, I don't know. I haven't tapped into that side of me for so long because once we become mothers, that's like our primary role and we forget all these other parts of us.
Totally. Yeah. It's a thing that definitely happens. And, it's a little bit of like the belief system that it's like to be a good mom, you do everything for your kids. All of your money goes towards your kids having the best of everything. And you will wear the same stretched out clothes that you've worn forever. And you will devote all of your time to them and run them to activities. And I just really, of course, yes, be a good mom, but you have to see that being a good mom does not mean sacrificing yourself. You have to see that those are two different things, right? Like being a good mom is one thing and taking care of yourself. And it's like this, the cliche saying, but like you can't pour from the empty cup. And it's 100% true, because like the one mantra that I tell my clients and I repeat it everywhere I can is like, when I thrive, everyone around me thrives. And I think that the more women that are repeating that and that believe that with all of their heart, the better, the better they will raise their children, the better they will perform at work, the better they will be in the world as a friend, as a mom, as a wife, as everything, literally everything will improve when, and I'm going to even go so far as to say specifically women, because I think that women struggle with it so much. Like, oh, I feel so guilty for taking care of myself. Like, what? Yeah. No, when you take care of yourself and you're nourished on all levels, you are fulfilled, you are happy, you are healthy, you are on fire, and you can be so much more potent in all areas of your life.
Yeah. And men just do not have the same struggle in that area that women do. Like men are just like, I need a shower or I need this, they have no qualms about, taking a step outside or, whatever it is that they're needing. And I think women in general, we do have it's this maternal instinct where we want to take care of other people, but we forget to take care of ourselves too. And I mean, it's so true. Like, yes, they have needs that we do need to meet, but we have needs too.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And so take us back to when you had postpartum depression. That had to have been a really hard time. I mean, becoming a new mom is hard all on its own. And then there's a stigma around postpartum depression where we feel guilty, we feel bad, we don't want to talk about it. And it's something that is not talked about a lot. And it's just this taboo thing where we don't want to really admit that we need help.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I mean, 100%, like, cause I really was in denial until after I would say that I'm going to just say got to the other side of it, that I really realized oh yeah, you definitely weren't well. But truthfully, I denied because my mom even said to me, I think you might have postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. And I was like, no, I don't. I just, I'm just tired, or I'm just this, or it's just because I don't get time to myself, or it's just because, Lyndon works night shifts and da da da. And it really was, I'm just, the perfect storm. Lyndon, my husband, worked, of course, night shifts with his job. And my second daughter, Lincoln, she had reoccurring ear infections from 7 months until, 13 months. So just literally every night I was in the rocking chair with her. And it was always me because, you're breastfeeding mom and that's what she wanted to do to feel better. And if he was, because he was on night shifts sometimes too, that it was just it was just always me anyway. So she was up. I was just in the rocking chair every single night. She was a terrible sleeper. Probably from about 5 months on, but I think it was around the 7 months when she got the ear infections. And so I think that that's kind of where it started happening is I was just, and my 13-month-old or she was, at that point she would have been 20 some months or whatever. She was not a good sleeper at all either. So between the two of them, I was just not sleeping well. And it got to be to the point where people, my family would be like, how is the girls' night? And I just fed on that. And I just I would just be like, oh, not good. They were up at this time. And it was all I talked about. And I just I was so in self-pity and just, I felt so sorry for myself. And it was just terrible. But anyways, so that was going on. And then I think just from the sleep deprivation and then being I don't know, we lived in a fine area, but I was just so nervous. What if somebody broke in? And this, I guess, is right. This is postpartum anxiety. This is being anxious. Is just worrying about everything. And I kept thinking okay, if there's a fire in the middle of the night, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to get both these girls out of the house. So what am I going to do? And I spent so much of my time worrying about this and like thinking, like, did I hear something, or what's going on? Or like, cause I was up all night too with the kids when I would hear vehicles driving. And anyway, so that was like my mind, just this whole, few months that was going on where we lived, I guess a year that was happening. And, it was really hard on our relationship too, of course, because I would be so upset when he would be going to night shifts. I remember like bawling and just being scared, and then fighting, and just,
he doesn't know what's going on. Like, your hormones are going crazy, and he doesn't even know how to handle you.
And he's like, well, I have to go to work, like I have to go to work. And I was like, I don't want you to. It was awful. It was really hard. So I don't even know, like looking back now, I'm like, how did you get through those days? But you just keep going through them. And then eventually, like, we eventually sold our house in the city and we moved in with my parents while we built. And that was like, I think just like my saving grace. And then, we live in a smaller town now, just outside of the city. And it's just, I don't know. I think that I just was able to kind of hit the reset button and just get back to feeling, I started to take care of myself in that process too. But like nights were always really hard for me. And like when we lived there, and I struggled throughout that whole time. But yeah, I don't know, like I really denied it for a long time, not because I was ashamed, like not because I thought that it was a terrible thing, but just because I was like, just kept thinking like, no, it's because of this and it's because of that. And now I see like, no, you weren't doing well. But I think, I like to believe that things happen for a reason. And one of the things that was going on with Lincoln waking up every night, I remember just being such a victim and thinking like, oh, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Right? Such a victim statement. And eventually it was just like me listening to things, reading books, and just like making these changes that I was making. I remember, I don't remember who it was, but somebody like rephrased the question and was like, not why is this happening to you, but what do I need to learn from this? And I was like, yes. So I asked myself that, like, what do you need to learn from this? Like, this is happening. What if this is happening for you to grow? And I really do believe that now. Like, I know some people don't believe that things are happening for a reason, and that's fine, but I like to believe that. And it feels good to believe that, I get to learn from these experiences. And I see now, like, you had to go through these hard times so that you can be in this position where you are now, that you really needed to learn how to be in control of your thoughts and your emotions. You really needed to go through that experience, and contrast is a part of life. Nothing is wrong. It's not, nothing was wrong with you or any of that moment. That's part of life. And it's not always, we want it to be always easy, but it's not. And you have to see how bad it is sometimes for you to also experience the positive. And I really do believe that. And so I think that gave me such a drive to make changes. Right?
Yeah. I believe that too. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and good or bad, like nothing is ever wasted. So even with these bad experiences that we have, we can use it for good. We can use it to advance in our career, or to teach us a lesson, to help us grow. Or, if you're in business for yourself, you can help walk someone through, becoming a mentor or a coach or something where you're able to help others who are going through it, and you've already been on the other side, and you can talk or walk someone through those steps that helped you, and now you're able to help them. So I truly believe the universe it uses every experience that we've ever had, good or bad, to really set us up for our highest self.
I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So what are some of the mindset tools that you use either on a daily basis or with some of your clients? What are some of the biggest things that you see?
Yeah. So a lot of it is, I'm going to say kind of like the superficial at the top, right? Like just like, I want to lose weight or that kind of stuff, I guess, is the beginning things, but we get into it. And so my program is taking them through all of the areas of their life. So we start with like your thoughts and the emotion, which I think, and the energy, which is the foundation for everything, right? And then, we decide like, who do you want to be? What do you want your health to be like? What do you believe in for spirituality? Like, what do you want your home, your lifestyle, your career? Like, and it's not that we necessarily go through all of these changes in 12 months, but like, it's like designing that and giving them, I guess, permission and like letting them know and believe that they get to decide those things and they get to create the life that how they want to and put in what they want to see and work towards it. But the foundation really is like women coming to me for not feeling how they want to feel. Kind of, like whether it's in their health or their mindset. And then we work through those things. But a lot, like I have had clients coming from, just wanting kind of like a life overhaul and just wanting to make things be the way that they want it to be. Yeah. But when I think that people coming towards the program for health, it really, I help them see why it is the way it is or why they haven't gotten the results that they want to get yet. Right. And because like a lot of people do that with their health. And like we touched on this like very briefly, but like when people want something in their life, they're coming at this want from a place of lack. I don't have this and I want this, right? So I don't have a relationship and I want a relationship, or I don't have the body or the health that I want. And it's a lack energy, right? And so that's why they're getting or not getting the results that they want, is because they have this never worked before. It's not going to work for me this time, or I don't, and if you can't switch that while you're working towards this goal, this vision that you have for yourself, then it's of course, then you just keep getting more lack that you have to. So I teach them the tools that I use is just teaching them it's your thoughts that create your feelings. It's your feelings that drive your actions. Yeah. It's your actions that add up to create your results. And so
I show that reframe of like, I don't have this now and maybe I've never gotten it, never gotten the results I want, but I'm willing to see things differently. And I'm willing to maybe do something different.
Yeah. And I also tell them too, like that's a thing for a lot of people is thinking like, I just need to do more, right? I need to take more action. And I'm like, well, not necessarily. I think the action, like sometimes people are, quote unquote, doing all the things, but the reason that they're not getting the result is because that action is filled with that lack energy. So like, for example, I could go for a run and I could make changes to my diet. And if I keep staying stuck in this lack energy, like, oh, this sucks. I have to eat a salad, or I don't even I hate running. And I'm like in this lack energy. Well, how long do you think I'm going to stick with running? Right? Not very long. So, or how long am I going to stick with eating the salads if every time I come to it, or whatever, I keep having those same types of thoughts. So really, it's super important to see that it's like, it is your thoughts that are the starting points to all change. And it's like, not just the thoughts. It's not just about switching your thoughts, but it's like, what kind of thoughts are you believing? Because when you believe a thought, that's what makes it potent. So it's mixing that energy, that emotion in with the thought. So, for example, for me, I believe that it's super easy to be healthy. And because I believe that, and I truly believe it, that's what I experience in my life. Ease all the time. Everywhere I go, ease. It's no problem for me to do the things because I'm naturally a healthy person. That's my identity. Yeah. Now, for somebody who doesn't believe that yet, for them to take that thought, that's my thought, it's easy for me to be healthy, or I'm naturally a healthy person. They don't believe it. Yeah. So if they say it, right, that's why some affirmations, they don't work, because if you don't believe it, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You have to actually get into the energy of it. So like, I'm learning to be healthy. I'm learning to love being healthy. I'm learning to do this, or I believe that it's possible for me to be healthier, or, whatever it is. And you have to keep that type of energy and thought, like, this is working. Yeah. So much of the time we're doing things, I'm like, oh, it's not working. Right? Yeah. And it's funny because I've had those thoughts building my business in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working, right? Nothing's working, da, da, da. And so what do you experience? You experience things that are not working. But once you can change that, and it's hard, that's the hardest part. That is the biggest work for people, is getting from lack to getting into the possibility.
Yeah. And mindset is such a crucial piece of it. A lot of people think I just need to eat healthier or work out more, or I need to focus more on my business, or whatever that is. But, you know, in my own health journey, I also had those old stories of, you know, I can't do this. I'm not committed. I am not even consistent. I've never been consistent with anything. Yeah. And, when I first started my weight loss journey about 6 to 7 years ago, I pulled out a journal and I started writing out my affirmations, and I wrote out what I wanted. I wrote out things that I am healthy, I am consistent, I love to work out, and doing that every single day. After a while, after a couple weeks of that, my workouts became more automatic. It was crazy how something where I've never been a girl who'd like to work out, and all of a sudden I was like doing the thing. I was like picking up the weights, or I was ready to go for a jog, and it was just became kind of automatic. And I really believe that a lot of that was that mindset piece that I put in place in the first part of my day. That's what I was spending my day doing.
That's so good. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think it's the most powerful thing is to dissect your mind and see what's going on in there. Yeah. Because we don't even realize. And you know, I'm a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks about how, we have like between 60 and 70,000 thoughts in a day. And the majority of those thoughts are the same thoughts you thought yesterday and the day before and the day before. And so it's like, well, no wonder your life isn't changing. It's because you're thinking the same thoughts that you've always thought. And you're, of course, going to get the same results, because thoughts are the starting point to results. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can change your beliefs. You can change your thoughts, and you can change the neural pathways in your brain. But it starts with like thinking different things, believing different things, and doing different things.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you've got to, you know, be a little bit more, objective, or just look at your thoughts from like that outsider point of view and think like, well, is this true? Like that's, you know, Byron Katie's work, probably, you know, her, like she has those questions like, is this true? Can I be absolutely certain that this is true, that I'm never consistent, or whatever it is that your thought is, right? Like, no, I've been consistent in some things, and am I capable of change? 100%. So I believe that I can be more consistent. And like once you start doing that enough times over and over again, it's the starting point to it all.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Yeah. So tell us where we can find you if our listeners want to connect with you further. Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, Instagram, I would say. So you can find me Megan R.Schmidt. So MEGAN.R.Schmidt.
Okay.
And I also have a Facebook group. If you ever want to join the Facebook group, it's Aligned Life Society.
Aligned Life Society. Love that. So we will put those links in the show notes. Awesome. And I am so grateful that you came on and talked to us about this. Mindset is such a powerful piece, and honestly, it is the biggest piece. If you can learn to shift your mindset around something, you know, a lot of the other things fall into place.
So fun. Thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting with you today.
Yeah, thank you. Did you love this episode? I would love to connect with you and hear all of your ahas. Do me a favor, take a screenshot right now. Tag me on IG your biggest takeaway. You can find the podcast at momsinbiz_podcast. And if you haven't joined the party yet, we are hanging out over on Facebook. We have a private group called Moms in Business. And this group is all about connection, community, and collaboration. So if you haven't joined us yet, please do come over and join in on the conversation.